Now, most of the delegates at the Philadelphia Convention signed the Constitution on September 17th of 1787. However, as we know, their product could not become the law of the land until the Constitution was ratified. Now, the delegates originally gathered in Philadelphia to amend the Articles of Confederation, which required approval by Congress and then confirmation by the legislatures of each of the 13 states. Now, this would look a little bit different in the ratification process of the US Constitution as we know it today. Delegates knew that many members of Congress and state governments may oppose the actual draft Constitution, largely because it created a different balance in the state versus federal powers. They also knew that it might be impossible to get all of the states on board. And therefore, in Article 7, James Madison decided that the ratification of 9 states would be sufficient for the establishment of the Constitution between the states. Furthermore, and critically, the plan was to go to the voters to get them to approve the Constitution. The Constitution would be presented to special ratifying conventions in each state, rather than to existing state legislatures. What this would do was it would allow for the popular vote to make a decision on this new critical document that defined the relationship between the people and their government. It was an example of social contract theory. People who were to be governed by this new government were asked to consent to the creation of this new structure. And the idea really reflected recent history at that time. When the states wrote new state constitutions during and after the Revolutionary War, they often were submitted to the people for ratification, rather than to existing state legislatures. Now, most of the debate that would occur as to whether to adopt the Constitution or not happened in the public sphere and in the media, particularly in writings between what are now known as the anti-federalists and those that did not support the new constitutional structure, and the federalists, those that did. The first state to ratify the Constitution was actually Delaware on December 7th, 1787, which was quickly followed by Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut. Some states immediately began to voice opposition to the original Constitution based on the grounds that it did not affirmatively provide for certain rights, responsibilities, and individual liberties, such as the freedom of speech, religion, and the press. But by February of 1788, the Massachusetts Compromise began to stipulate that these amendments would become part of the next set, the draft of what we now call the Bill of Rights, the next set of amendments to the Constitution, at which point it would be adopted after the ratification debates. And finally, after that, Massachusetts, Maryland, South Carolina, and then New Hampshire decided to ratify the Constitution, and the Constitution would come into effect. But the debate that would continue to exist as to the Bill of Rights would not be resolved immediately. And it was within that debate, within the Bill of Rights, that the real core debate would occur when it came to the next steps in constitutional ratification.